Brad Underwood spoke on the state of the Illinois roster after all of these international ads, after landing Andrei Stojakovic. There's been a bunch of speculation on if Illinois is done big fish hunting for this roster. And I believe this interview was with the News Gazette, which is just, as far as I can tell, just like an Illinois newspaper in the Champaign-Urbana area. And I think it was Scott Ritchie or Scott Rickey who wrote the article. So shout out to Scott. But there's some very interesting Brad Underwood quotes. I'm going to read some important ones here, and then we can discuss what he means by this or if we believe he's true here. Underwood said about his roster, quote, "We might fill in with some developmental pieces, some guys that we think can grow into our program. I think there's a challenge of having too many. I think there's a challenge of making sure you have the right amount of depth in case we have a season like we did last year with the sicknesses and everything else. But I do think you can have too many. I like where we're at. I like our age. I'm not into tinkering with the roster too much at this point, other than maybe some guys who really want to be at Illinois and try to develop into some stuff in the future." That's Brad Underwood on his roster after adding Andrei Stojakovic. What do you take this quote as? Does this mean that Brad is done with his roster for next season?
So the smoke around this, if I'm tell me if I'm wrong on this, G, has been that there's like kind of one more big fish to add, possibly, right? Like before this quote.
It's smoke that I have not believed to be true, but there
Okay.
is a contingent of Illinois people out there, whether fans or otherwise, that have strongly believed that even after adding Andrei Stojakovic, there is still a lump sum of money available that
Mhm.
was being reserved for Will Riley to drop out of the draft. And that if
Right.
Will Riley didn't drop out of the draft, they would pivot it to another big fish. That doesn't sound like what Brad Underwood is saying here, but maybe he's keeping
That,
things discreet.
that's the two things I'm taking from it. One, I would never ever work for an organization or newspaper that didn't go by Gazette in some shape or form. And then two, that Brad's trying to add a piece that's not necessary. Like the words wants to be at Illinois, wants to develop. Those kind of words strike to me as like, oh, we might add somebody, but it might be like with all due respect, like a Jason Jacobs type, like a Jake Davis type player. Maybe someone that
Start with
you
a
know are
J.
yeah, you're like you're not taking a gamble on, but it's like a developmental retain piece. Maybe not necessarily going to, affect this season necessarily, but just someone to kind of be in the fold of the program. That's what those are the thoughts that came to my head when I heard Brad speak about that. That doesn't sound like, oh, I'm about to go get somebody that's gonna like shake up the program.
Hashtag the retainment, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's the retention.
the retention, excuse me.
Please.
Yeah, which is what like everybody's doing, right? Like I feel like we heard a very, very similar quote from Mark Pope last week, which is like, "Hey, my roster's basically done, but I'm going to look for a couple guys that would kill to wear the Kentucky uniform that are long-term pieces." I think you go around. I mean, obviously Michigan's in a unique spot waiting for Yaxel, but if Yaxel's in the fold, they're not adding any more big fish. Michigan State, you could debate if they need a big fish, but it certainly seems like they're hunting depth pieces right now instead of anything different. I feel like across the country with programs that we cover, even BYU, now that they've kind of solidified their starting lineup, it's like we're looking for depth. I think this is the evolution of college basketball rosters in this era where there's 15 scholarships now. And I've said it before, it's really hard to keep 10 guys happy, let alone 15. So when you feel like you have as many players in your rotation as you need, you can't really look for other guys that think they should be in the rotation. You need to add some guys who will be happy being the 14th and 15th pieces. And yeah, I think if you take Brad Underwood at his word here, that's what he's setting out to do. Now, when he says like, or maybe these were your words and not his, I don't know. Um, like guys that would just like be really happy being in an Illinois uniform for multiple years, developing, growing, staying. Does Ty Rogers have other family members? It's like the Rogers bloodline is the only bloodline I've seen that's happy staying at Illinois forever, right? That's not exactly something that happens in this era. This video is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. We have a special offer for you. Promo code SLEEPERS. If you're a first-time depositor, they will give you a bonus up to $1,000 that matches 50% of your first deposit, plus a free pick. And tonight's free pick is focused on none other than Steph Curry. Card, I got a question for you. How many points does Steph Curry average?
Ooh, I'm gonna go ahead and say 29.
I don't have it in front of me, but that sounds about right. Certainly more than zero, I assume.
Of course.
Well, tonight's free pick, Steph Curry to score 1 point, higher than zero point 0.5 points. It's as much of a guarantee as you can possibly get. Underdog Fantasy, deposit as a first time user, put in promo code SLEEPERS. Make sure you get that deposit match bonus up to $1,000 and the Steph Curry free pick. Back to the video.
Hey, listen. Respect Coleman Hawkins.
Oh, you're right. The $2 million man, allegedly.
Yeah.
It's
Graduated.
he graduated. He was done. Yeah, you're right. But like, should this be the path? I guess like if you're say that you are in the shoes of one of those Illinois people that believes they do have money for another big fish. And now you hear your coach, Brad Underwood, be like, yeah, we're done. We're basically done. We're looking for a 14th, 15th guy. How would you feel? Wouldn't you be disappointed then if you do have the money for another big fish? Or like what's the reasoning here, you know?
Yeah, I get well, one, I think the amount of money you have for that big fish would like determine something because like if Illinois, well, in a perfect I can do whatever I want world, I got a big bag. I'm like monitoring if like Darian Williams wants to come back to college or something like that. And like maybe going like they're a big fish like that. But I also think that Brad has added a lot of pieces that he kind of has reached a point where maybe they don't really need a big fish. Maybe they do need a 13th to, an end of the bench type guy that may or may not play, but could help them in a case. So I don't know. I kind of feel like they've done enough so far with the ads that they have that they don't necessarily need a big fish, I guess per se.
They're kind of in an interesting spot because, in one sense, I agree with you. I don't think they need another starter level player to compete at the Big Ten or the national level. Like, I think they're in the mix in both. I think they're a top four team in the conference. I think they're a top 15 to 20 team nationally. But I guess it just depends on what your bar is. Like, if you want to go compete with Purdue, I would argue you do need another big fish. If you want to go be like a national title contender, a Final Four favorite, I would argue you do need another big fish. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Illinois fans want to fight me on that, um but I don't know. It's interesting cuz like I feel like this all comes back, like everything this offseason comes back to like what's the true amount of money Illinois has. And we didn't do a video on this. Maybe we should have. I don't know. There were so many people in our mentions being like, they're just going to clickbait this that I kind of just tried to tune it out. But like Norlander came out and said after Andrej Stojakovic that Illinois has spent $10 million on this roster. So that's new. Remember, CBS Sports did the summary of this like a month ago, and Illinois wasn't even in the $8 million range. So something must have changed between Petro and Stojakovic. They brought the checkbook out, and here we are. Um, but like, it's one of those things. Do they actually have $3 more million or not? Because if they do, if that's what was set aside for Will Riley, and that's still not been spent, and it's there, they 100% should go get a big fish still, right? And like they're on the list for Jameer Watkins, or at least they were a month ago before Andrej Stojakovic. So like there's no logical reason in your mind that like if Jameer Watkins wanted to come to Illinois and Illinois could afford him, that you turn down Jameer Watkins and say our roster's finalized,
Yeah,
right?
no, he's too good.
Right. So
He's
then it becomes like, okay, are we done with the roster because we've spent our budget? And that the contingent of people who said we have $3 more million are incorrect? Like, what's your read on that side of this?
I lean that the contingent that thinks they have that much money left are a little off. Little off on the numbers.
It could also be one of those things where like the donors would pay for Will Riley, but wouldn't pay for a new name. That could be a real thing.
That definitely could be a real thing because there is a little bit of like, oh, we love Will Riley. Will Riley be great, we'll pay for that. Well, you want to bring him in though? Nah.
Yeah, there's familiarity here where it's like, oh, we can get our first round pick back that we love. Yes, I'll pay for that. Brad, I can't give you 3 million. You'll just get four more Serbians.
Yeah, but also
Like,
Will's not coming back.
you don't think there's a chance?
No.
I thought his announcement was pretty black and white. I'm gone, but there seems to be
Black and white, I'm
conviction
gone.
out
Also,
there.
like I have seen, don't take this seriously or anything like that, but NBA draft Twitter. Now that's not a real thing as far as these NBA teams, but I think there's a real world where Will Riley does nothing but rise during this draft process. I think he showed enough at the end of last season that is intriguing to be like that guy could be low key a star at the NBA level because I think he does a lot more things than people give him credit for. Me being some of those people to start the year.
Yeah, I think that's a totally fair read. 1 second, I need to use Google Translate for something.
Oh God.
Pechenye. Pechenye.
Pechenye,
Pechenye.
pechenye,
Pechenye.
pechenye. Brad, he's not tinkering anymore, but he will petenje.
What does that mean?
That's Serbian for tinkering.
Oh, good Lord.
He will tinker overseas. You let this man tinker overseas, he will tinker overseas, Cart.